Most artists, they spend their entire lives just trying to find their voice.
Exactly. Decades.
They work to refine that one signature style that makes them instantly recognizable.
Right. You see a melting clock, you know it's Dali.
It's Dali. You read a sentence about a bullfight, it's Hemingway. No question. But today, we're talking about a man who did the exact opposite. He found his voice, he conquered the entire world with it, and then he just threw it away.
And it's so bizarre. He didn't just do it once either.
No, he did it 3 times.
It's a career path that is, it's singular. I really can't think of another figure in any art form who so thoroughly and so repeatedly just destroyed their own identity.
We're talking about Igor Stravinsky. Time magazine named him one of the 100 most influential people of the 20th century.
Which is a huge deal. That list is usually, for presidents and scientists, not composers.
Right, not guys writing ballet scores.
But he absolutely deserves to be there. Stravinsky didn't just write music. He fundamentally altered the way we hear and perceive time and rhythm.
How so?
Well, if you listen to a modern film score today, or jazz, or even some kinds of heavy metal, there's a little piece of Stravinsky's DNA in there.
Whether the composer knows it or not.
Exactly. He's just baked into the language now.
And yet, here's the paradox. If you ask 3 different people to describe his music, you could get 3 completely contradictory answers.
Oh, absolutely. One person would say, oh, it's that violent tribal, noise.
And then another person might say, no, it's that polite, delicate music that sort of sounds like Mozart.
And then a third person would be like, what are you talking about? It's cold, it's mathematical, it sounds like computer data.
And the crazy thing is, all 3 of them would be right.
All 3. And that's the challenge for our deep dive today. We're looking at the 3 distinct lives of Igor Stravinsky,
The Russian revolutionary, the neoclassical traditionalist,
and the serialist mathematician.
So we've got a whole stack of sources here to help us. Biographies, a lot of musicological analysis on his different periods, and his own autobiography, Chronicle of My Life.
And we've also got the memoirs of his longtime assistant, Robert Kraft, which are incredibly revealing.
So our mission today is really to figure out the why. Why does a man who achieves, absolute superstardom decide to just burn it all down and start over from scratch?
It's a question of psychology, I think, just as much as it is about art.
Let's start at the beginning, 1882. Oranienbaum, Russia. Now, you'd expect the most influential composer of the century to be a prodigy, right?
Oh, for sure.
I'm picturing little Mozart, blindfolded at the keyboard at age 5, dazzling the chord. Was Stravinsky that kid?
Not even close. Not even in the same universe. In fact, if you looked at Igor Stravinsky at age, say, 10 or 12, you would probably include he had no future in music whatsoever.
Really? But he was born into a musical family.
He was. His father, Fyodor, was a very famous bass singer at the Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg. So there was music all around, but the household itself, that wasn't a nurturing place. It was cold.
The sources use this phrase, denied love, which just sounds heavy.
It is heavy, but it's accurate. Stravinsky himself described his childhood as profoundly lonely.
Wow.
His father had a volatile, terrifying temper, and his mother. He said she showed him almost total indifference.
So he just felt like an outsider in his own home?
Completely. He wrote much later in life that the only person he really felt love for was his younger brother, Guri.
And what about the music? His parents, the professionals, they just didn't see it in him.
They didn't. And, to be fair to them, he wasn't a good student in the way they understood it. He hated practicing scales. He hated the drills, the repetition.
What did he like to do?
He preferred to just sit at the piano and improvise. Just making noise, finding interesting sounds. And to a strict professional like his father, that just looked like laziness.
But he was goofing off.
Exactly. It wasn't serious work.
It's so interesting, though, because you have to wonder, if he had been forced to do all those drills, would he have become the Stravinsky we know?
That is the million-dollar question, the big what if.
Or would he just be another competent but, ultimately forgettable Russian composer from that era?
I would argue that his lack of that rigid, early conservatory training was actually his secret weapon. It was his superpower.
How so?
Because he didn't have all the rules burned into his brain as deeply as all his peers did. When he was improvising, he was finding his own internal logic, not just repeating someone else's.
What? His parents weren't buying it. They were betting on his internal logic.
Not a chance. They forced him into the classic plan B for artistic kids,
Yeah.
the graveyard of so many artistic dreams. In 1901, he enrolls at the University of St. Petersburg. And he was, by all accounts, just a terrible law student.
He wasn't into it at all.
Barely attended lectures. He was just drifting, waiting for his real life to start.
And then the universe finally throws him a bone. A huge one. Turns out he's friends with the son of Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov.
Who was, essentially the godfather of Russian music at the time, a living legend.
So Stravinsky, this law school dropout, manages to get a meeting with the great master. He shows him some of his early, probably pretty amateurish compositions.
Right. And this is the part of the movie where the master is supposed to say, "My boy, you are a genius. You must come to the conservatory immediately."
But that's not what happened.
Rimsky-Korsakov said the exact opposite. He told Stravinsky, "Do not go to the conservatory."
Why? That seems so counterintuitive. He's the head of the whole system.
Because Rimsky-Korsakov saw something. He saw a raw, fragile, and very unusual talent. He believed that the academic atmosphere of the conservatory, the exams, the theory, the competition, he thought it would crush Stravinsky's spirit.
Or iron out all his unique quirks.
Precisely. So instead, he offered to mentor him privately. He wanted to protect that improvisational spark we were talking about.
That is an incredible act of perception.
Yeah.
To see that this specific kid needed a guide, not a drill sergeant.
It changed everything. So Stravinsky spends a few years learning orchestration from him, but he's still a complete nobody. He's just a guy with a few short pieces to his name. How does he get from there to the stages of Paris?
Luck.
Absolute, pure, blind luck. And a man named Sergei Diaghilev.
The impresario.
Diaghilev is one of these incredible figures in art history who wasn't an artist himself. He didn't write or dance or paint, but he was a visionary. He made things happen.
And he was running the Ballets Russes in Paris?
Yes, and he was basically selling this idea of exotic Russia to the French. He needed a composer for a new ballet based on the Russian fairy tale of the Firebird.
But he didn't call Stravinsky, not at first.
Oh no, Stravinsky was literally the bottom of the barrel. Diaghilev first asked a composer named Anatoly Lyudov. He was too lazy and never finished it. Then he asked another one, Cherepnin. He asked everyone who was anyone.
And they all said no, or they flaked out?
They all flaked. So Diaghilev was getting desperate, the season was approaching, and he took this huge gamble on a 27-year-old nobody he'd heard one short piece by.
And Stravinsky, I'm guessing, did not flake out.
Stravinsky wrote as if his entire life depended on it, which, professionally speaking, it did. The Firebird premiered in 1910.
And it was an overnight sensation.
Total sensation. He was famous instantly.
So let's dig into the music of the Firebird for a second, because it's the beginning of the first life of Stravinsky.
Yeah.
What made it work so well?
It worked because he created this incredibly clear way of storytelling through harmony. We call it light harmony. So in the ballet, you have the human characters, Prince Ivan, the princesses.
Right.
When they're on stage, Stravinsky uses what we call diatonic music.
Which means layman's terms.
Think of it as white key music on a piano. It sounds like a folk song. It's music you can hum. It feels grounded, safe, and, human.
Okay, so that's the human world.
But then you have the villain. The magical sorcerer, Koshchei the Deathless. When he or his magical creatures appear, the music totally shifts into chromatic or octatonic scales.
So wait, the humans get folk songs, and the magic sounds slippery and unstable.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's disorienting. It created the subconscious roadmap for the audience. Even if you didn't know music theory, you could hear the difference between the natural world and the supernatural world.
That plus the dazzling orchestration, I imagine.
It was just a riot of color. Stravinsky immediately became the toast of Paris.
Okay, so he's a huge success. He follows it up pretty quickly with Petrushka in 1911. And this is where I feel like he starts to really push the envelope. The Firebird was beautiful, but Petrushka is, well, it's weird.
Petrushka is where the modernist Stravinsky really starts to show himself. The ballet is about a puppet who comes to life.
Right, he has human emotions, but he's trapped in this puppet's body.
And Stravinsky needed a sound that could represent that duality, the man and the machine, the flesh and the wood. So he invented what we now call the Petrushka chord.
This is the budnality thing. 2 keys at once.
Exactly. Imagine you have 2 pianos. On one, you play a simple C major chord, all white keys. It's very bright, very happy sounding. On the other piano, you play an F-sharp major chord, which is mostly black keys.
And F-sharp is about as far away from C as you can get on the keyboard, musically.
They are polar opposites now. So imagine you slam them both down at the exact same time.
It must sound like a train wreck, just a total mess.
It sounds like an argument. That's the best way I can describe it. It sounds like two people screaming at each other in different languages. It clashes, but it clashes in a way that feels rhythmic and mechanical and puppet-like.
Wow.
It was the perfect sonic metaphor for this poor, tragic puppet.
I love that. An argument in two keys.
So he's proven he's a genius with color in Firebird, and now he's a genius with harmony in Petrushka. He's famous, he's celebrated, but absolutely nothing could have prepared the world for 1913.
Ah, yes. The rite of spring.
The singularity.
The event horizon of music history. We really have to stop and paint the picture here, because the riot at the rite of spring has become this, this cliche, oh, they rioted. But reading the eyewitness accounts in the sources, this was not just people booing. This was a physical brawl. This was dangerous.
It was visceral. You have to understand the context. The brand new Théâtre des Champs-Élysées is packed to the gills.
The absolute A-list of Paris.
The elite. The ladies in their diamonds, the critics, the snobs, the artists, and they're all expecting another nice, exotic Russian ballet. Maybe some pretty peasant girls dancing in a circle.
And what do they get instead?
They get a pagan sacrifice. The curtain goes up, and the dancers aren't pointing their toes and being graceful. They're pigeon-toed. They are stomping the floor. They are hunched over. And the music.
The outline mentions that opening solo. It's a bassoon, right?
It's a bassoon, but it's played at the very, very top of its range. A bassoon is not supposed to be able to play that high. It sounds unnatural.
Like what?
Like a strangled saxophone or some kind of dying prehistoric animal. It's a sound that immediately tells you something is wrong.
And then the rhythm kicks in.
Yeah.
The augurs of spring.
And this is the moment Stravinsky breaks music. Before this, for centuries, Western music was built on metric regularity. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4.
Your body knows where the beat is coming. You can tap your foot to it.
It's predictable. It's safe. In the right, Stravinsky obliterates safety. He takes this one chord and just hammers it, but the accents are all in the wrong places. It's like bam, 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 bam. It's uneven. It's jagged.
The source material describes it as slashes of sound.
It honestly felt like a physical assault to the audience, and they snapped. The hissing started almost immediately, then shouting, then people started throwing vegetables.
Fistfights were breaking out in the aisles.
Actual fistfights. People were challenging each other to duels in the intermission. The noise from the audience was so loud that the dancers on stage couldn't even hear the orchestra.
That's insane.
The choreographer, Nijinsky, had to stand on a chair in the wings, screaming the counts at them. 1, 2, 3, just so they could keep moving.
It sounds absolutely terrifying, but also kind of exhilarating.
Yeah.
Stravinsky didn't just write a piece of music. He tapped into something primal in the audience.
He stripped away the veneer of civilization.
Yeah,
He proved that underneath all the tuxedos and the diamonds, we are all just a bunch of tribal primitives waiting to sacrifice someone to the earth god.
So this is the pivot point. You're Igor Stravinsky. You're 31 years old. You have just written the most famous, the most scandalous, the most groundbreaking piece of music in history. You are the bad boy of the avant-garde. The whole world is waiting for your next move.
And logic dictates you go bigger, louder, crazier.
Right, you write Rite of Spring Part 2, even more sacrifices.
That would be the logical path, yes.
But he doesn't do that at all.
Well, first, before he can do anything, the world falls apart. 1914, World War I begins.
And this is such a crucial bit of context. The next shift isn't just an artistic choice, it's a survival choice.
Completely. Stravinsky is in Switzerland when the war breaks out. He can't go back to Russia. Then, the Russian Revolution happens in 1917. The Bolsheviks take over.
And Stravinsky is from the aristocracy.
He's a nobleman's son. His property is seized, his royalties from all his music in Russia, gone, vanished. His German publisher, closed down by the war.
So overnight, the biggest composer in the world is effectively a refugee with no income.
And he has a wife and 4 children to feed. He literally could not afford to write another Rite of Spring. That piece requires a massive orchestra, over 100 musicians. Who's going to pay for that in the middle of a world war?
So constraint breeds creativity.
It forces his hand. He starts writing for these tiny, scrappy ensembles, 7 instruments for the soldier's tale. It's music that's portable. He can tour with it like a traveling circus to make money.
But then, as the war ends, he does something even more shocking to the art world than the riot. He releases a ballet in 1920 called Pulcinella.
And the avant-garde, the people who loved him, they gasped in horror.
Because it sounds like Mozart. What is going on?
It sounds like the 18th century. It's light, it's graceful, it's tonal, it has melodies you can actually whistle.
So why? Why does the guy who just incinerated all the rules of music suddenly decide to put on a powdered wig?
This is the beginning of his second life, the neoclassical pivot. And I think you have to look at the psychology of the time. The world had just endured the absolute chaos of World War I.
Millions dead. Empires collapsed.
Europe was a smoking ruin. The last thing Stravinsky wanted was more chaos. He didn't want more primitivism. He craved order. He craved structure.
So going back to the past was a way of finding stability in a world that had gone insane.
Precisely. He looked at the music of the 18th century Bach, Pergolesi, Mozart, and he saw it as a model of clarity, of balance, of sanity.
But the critics hated it, the ones who championed him.
Oh, they felt betrayed. They wanted the savage from Russia. They wanted more blood and sacrifice. And he gave them this delicate little comedy. They thought he was mocking them, or worse, that he had just run out of ideas, that he was washed up at 38.
But was he just copying Mozart? Or was there a trick to it?
There is definitely a trick. It sounds like the 18th century, but it's more like you're looking at the 18th century through a funhouse mirror. Or maybe through a cubist painting.
How so?
The melodies are there, but the harmonies are just slightly wrong. The rhythms stutter and shift when you don't expect them to. He took the powdered wig, but he put it on a slightly malfunctioning robot.
Cubist Mozart. I love that. And this wasn't just a brief phase, right? This neoclassical period lasted for a long time.
For 30 years, it became his defining style for the entire middle of his life. Pieces like the Symphony of Psalms, the Octet, he became the champion of this kind of objective music.
I want to touch on his personal life during this period because it gets messy and very tragic. The outline mentions Coco Chanel.
Yes, this is around 1920. The Stravinsky family was really struggling financially, and Coco Chanel, who is this huge patron of the arts, invited them all to live in her villa outside Paris.
Them, meaning Stravinsky, his wife Yekaterina, and his 4 kids.
The whole family, they moved in. And while they were living there, under her roof, Stravinsky and Chanel began an affair.
Wow, that is spectacularly awkward. His wife must have known.
The sources all suggest she knew, but felt totally powerless to do anything about it. She was ill with tuberculosis. They were completely dependent on Chanel's charity. It was a very tense, very bohemian arrangement, I guess you could say.
It says a lot about Stravinsky's personality, though, that he just took what he needed regardless of the consequences for others.
Very much so. But then the 1930s hit, and this is where the story gets incredibly dark.
This is the decade of loss.
It's just brutal. Tuberculosis, which had been plaguing his wife, just sweeps through the family. First, his eldest daughter, Ludmila, dies from it in 1938.
Terrible.
Then his wife, Yekaterina, finally succumbs in early 1939. And then, just a few months later, his own mother, Anna, dies.
So his daughter, his wife, and his mother. 3 generations of women in his life, all gone in the span of about a year.
It just broke him. He was surrounded by death. And at the same time, World War II is looming on the horizon. He knew he had to get out of Europe.
So he goes to America, and this begins the 3rd chapter, Hollywood Stravinsky.
Which is just such a surreal image, isn't it? This intense, intellectual Russian emigre living in Los Angeles, learning to drive a car, going to dinner parties with Aldous Huxley.
And we absolutely have to talk about Disney. We have to talk about Fantasia.
You can't skip it. It's how most people on Earth were first exposed to the Rite of Spring, that amazing dinosaur sequence.
So what did he think of it? I've heard conflicting stories about whether he liked it or not.
Well, he needed the money, so he licensed the music. But artistically, he despised it.
Really? Why?
The conductor, Leopold Stokowska, completely rearranged the music to fit the animation. He cut huge sections out, he changed the order of the movements, and to a control freak like Stravinsky, that was absolute sacrilege.
He wanted it performed exactly as written.
Always. He later called the Fantasia arrangement an unresisting imbecility.
Ouch. But he cashed the check.
He cashed the check.
So he settles in L.A., he marries his longtime mistress, Vera. He becomes a U.S. citizen in 1945. He's rich, he's famous, he's safe from the war. He's still writing his neoclassical music. He really could have just coasted to the end, right?
He could have. He absolutely could have just rested on his laurels. But he had a new problem, a terrifying one for an artist like him.
Which was?
Irrelevance.
How could Stravinsky possibly be irrelevant?
Because by the 1950s, a whole new generation of composers had come up. Young, angry, dogmatic guys like Pierre Boulez in France and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in Germany.
And what did they think of Stravinsky?
They looked at his neo-Mozart stuff, his neoclassicism, and they laughed. They thought it was kitsch. They called it reactionary garbage, a dead end.
So what were they into? What was the new cool thing?
They were obsessed with serialism, the 12-tone technique that was invented by his old rival, Arnold Schoenberg.
Okay, we need to pause and unpack serialism because this is the key to his third and final life. What is it, in simple terms?
Okay, so imagine traditional music is like gravity. You have a home key, let's say C major. No matter how far the melody wanders, your ear feels this constant pull to return to that home note. It feels stable, resolved.
Right. It wants to go home.
Schoenberg argued that this hierarchy of notes, this tonal gravity, was a prison that needed to be abolished. So he created a system where all 12 notes of the scale are treated as absolute equals.
How does that work?
You arrange them in a specific sequence, a tone row, and the main rule is you cannot repeat a note until you've played all 11 others first.
So there's no home base, no gravity?
No home. It's musical 0G. You're just floating. There's no sense of up or down, no resolution. To most people, it sounds abstract, difficult, and very, very mathematical.
And Stravinsky hated this stuff. Schoenberg lived in the same city, LA, and they famously never spoke.
He despised it. He spent decades publicly mocking it, but Schoenberg died in 1951, and Stravinsky could feel the musical world moving on without him. He was terrified of becoming a museum piece while he was still alive.
And this is where Robert Kraft comes in.
The catalyst. Robert Kraft was this brilliant, energetic, young American conductor who became Stravinsky's assistant, his secretary, his rehearsal pianist, basically his surrogate son.
And what did Kraft do?
Kraft did something incredibly brave. He started gently but persistently making the old man listen to the music he claimed to hate. He'd play him records of Schoenberg. He'd show him scores by Anton Webern, Schoenberg's student.
And Stravinsky actually liked it.
At first he resisted, but then the part of his brain that loved structure and order became fascinated by the math of it, the rigor. He started to see that it wasn't just random noise, it was a puzzle, a kind of musical Sudoku.
So in his 70s?
In his 70s, an age when most people are retired and set in their ways, Igor Stravinsky decided to go back to school and learn an entirely new musical language from his dead rival.
He starts writing serial music.
And it shocked the world all over again. I mean, it was like the Pope suddenly converting to Protestantism. The critics, both for and against him, couldn't believe it. The young guys thought, the old man is just trying to be cool, trying to join our club.
But was it just him copying them? Or did he make it his own?
That's the genius of it. He took this strict, dry, mathematical system, and he made it dance. If you listen to a late piece like the Ballet Agon or the Requiem Canticles, it's serial, absolutely. But it still sounds like Stravinsky. It has that rhythmic bite, that sharpness, that dry wit.
There's that great detail in the biography about how obsessed he became with the process.
Oh, yeah. He was constantly touring, staying in hotels, and he'd be working out these complex tone rows, these number sequences on anything he could find. Airline toilet paper, napkins, the back of a menu. He treated it like a game that he absolutely had to win.
It really speaks to the way his mind worked, doesn't it? He wasn't a feeler. He was a builder, an architect.
That leads us perfectly to his core philosophy, which is so often misunderstood. In his autobiography, he wrote this one sentence that people are still fighting about to this day.
What was it?
He said, "Music is, by its very nature, essentially powerless to express anything at all."
Hold on, that just feels like a lie.
Mm.
I listen to the finale of The Firebird and I feel a sense of triumph. I listen to The Rite of Spring and I feel genuine terror. Is he just gaslighting us?
He would say that you are gaslighting yourself.
Okay, explain that. What does he mean?
Stravinsky believed that music is just organized sound. It's acoustic phenomena. It's air vibrating at certain frequencies, organized in time, that's it. The triumph or the terror isn't actually in the notes. It's a story that your brain invents to make sense of the physical stimulation.
So he's the architect. He builds the cathedral. If I walk into the cathedral and feel a sense of holiness or awe, that's my projection. He just stacked the stones in the right order.
That is a perfect analogy. That's exactly it. And this is why he hated interpretation from performers. He famously yelled at conductors who tried to add too much emotion to this music.
What did he want instead?
He said, "Do not interpret, just execute." He wanted his music played with the precision of a sewing machine. Clean, clear, objective.
That's a very cold way to look at art, isn't it?
It is, but it's also kind of liberating. It frees the music from being a diary of the composer's ego. He isn't asking you to feel his pain or his joy. He's simply presenting you with a beautifully made object and letting you have your own reaction to it.
Let's look at his relationships through that same lens. He was good friends with Picasso, right?
They were kindred spirits, in a way. Picasso did the exact same thing in painting. He had a blue period, a rose period, cubism, neoclassicism. They both believed in deconstructing reality and rebuilding it according to their own rules. There's a famous sketch Picasso drew of Stravinsky. It's just a few simple lines, but recognize him instantly.
And then there was Debussy, the great French impressionist.
The frenemy. Debussy was the older, established master, and at first he was very supportive of this young Russian. But after the Rite of Spring happened, you can read in his letters that he got jealous.
He saw the spotlight shifting.
Completely. He started writing letters complaining that Stravinsky was becoming a spoiled child of fame, that his music was getting too much attention.
It seems like it was lonely at the top for Stravinsky.
Incredibly lonely. He outlived almost all of his peers and rivals. He buried Debussy, Ravel, Schoenberg, Bartók. By the 1960s, he was this monumental figure, the last giant of that era, still standing.
And in 1962, after a very long time, he finally goes home.
The return to Russia. He hadn't set foot on Russian soil since before World War I. It had been almost 50 years.
That must have been an overwhelming experience.
It was. You have to remember, under Stalin, Stravinsky's music was officially banned. It was considered bourgeois formalism, decadent Western trash. But by 1962, Khrushchev was in power. It was the period of the thaw.
And he was welcomed back.
Welcomed back as a national hero, a returning king. He met with Khrushchev. He conducted his own works. The sources say he cried when he stepped off the plane onto Russian soil.
But he didn't stay there.
No, he was a Westerner by then, an American citizen. He said his true home was the world.
His health started to decline pretty rapidly after that.
Yes. By the late 60s, he was very frail. He suffered from stomach ulcers, thrombosis, but he kept working, kept composing almost to the very end. He finally died in his New York apartment on April 6, 1971.
And he's buried in Venice.
On the cemetery island of San Michele. And here's the final poetic touch to the story. He is buried just a few yards away from Sergei Diaghilev,
the man who took a gamble on him when he was a complete nobody.
The impresario and his greatest discovery, together again in the end.
So we've walked through the three lives, the Russian savage, the neoclassical architect, and the serialist mathematician. When you step back and look at the whole vast picture, what is the through line? What makes all of this wildly different music still sound distinctly Stravinsky?
For me, I think the answer is rhythm. No matter what stylistic costume he was wearing, the heartbeat of the music was the same. He, more than anyone, liberated rhythm from the tyranny of the metronome. He made time elastic.
So whether he was using a Russian folk song or a complex 12-tone row, he was always messing with the pulse, always keeping you off balance.
Always. And that influence is absolutely everywhere now. You hear it in the American sound of Aaron Copland, in the minimalism of Philip Glass, even in the complex rock music of Frank Zappa. He taught the 20th century that the beat doesn't have to be steady to be powerful.
And I think he also taught us that you don't have to be defined by your own past success. You can burn it all down and build something completely new, even when you're 70 years old.
Especially when you're 70. It's never too late to reinvent.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today. Stravinsky made that famous, controversial claim that music expresses nothing. He insisted it was just structure, just math in motion. But this is the same man who created some of the most visceral, riot-inducing, and frankly heartbreaking art in human history. So ask yourself, is the emotion really in the music? Or is the music just a mirror reflecting what's already inside of us?
That is the eternal question, is it?
Do yourself a favor after this. Go find a recording of the sacrificial dance from the Rite of Spring. Turn it up loud. Then right after, listen to a piece like his Requiem Canticles. Just hear the incredible span of that one single lifetime. Thanks for diving in with us.